Alder Holmquist.
Here.
Mr. Grice. Here. Mr. Conrad.
Here.
Ms. Fox.
Here.
Mr. Stein.
Here.
Mr. Homburg.
Here.
Alder Moore and Ms. Fallett are excused.
All right. Item 3 is approval of the minutes from June 13th. Is there a motion? A second?
Second.
All right. Any additions, deletions, or corrections?
The only thing that I had noticed is that when they were talking about for Tully's, about we make reference to the patio, he was asking about the patio being permanent. It seemed like we were just talking about it being year-round, not permanent, so I just had struck the one term to substitute year-round instead of permanent, since we weren't going to be modifying the asphalt.
Okay. Any other corrections? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Minutes have been approved. Is there anybody here or on Zoom that is here for an appearance of an item that is not on the agenda? So is there anybody here that is wishing to appear for an item that is not on the agenda? No one is physically here, and I think everybody on Zoom is connected to an item. All right, we will close the appearance section. Moving on to 5A, which is unfinished business, public hearing on the request by Tully's 2 Food and Spirits for approval of a zoning permit for a new outdoor patio and associated fencing at 6401 Manoa Drive, case 2/15/2022. All right, and will you, in the public hearing section, this is again just an opportunity for you to share your plans, and then we'll be able to close that piece and move on to the action item.
Well, as you know, we've had this 2 years ago during COVID. Allowed us recently during COVID to have 2 straight years with 0 problems, 0 complaints or anything. And it's like continue it and be able to each year, we'll take it down every fall, each year be able to put it back out in the spring, when that season, and take it down in the fall again. And without having to go through all this, just be able to apply for renewal. The fence, we talked about the fencing last time. I put the same fencing back up, but it blew down with that storm we had. But I put cement brown pavers, the bottom of those planters. They're pretty heavy, so I don't think they'll blow down again. But other than that, everything's pretty much the same as we talked 2 weeks ago.
All right. And is there anybody here or on Zoom that wishes to comment during the public hearing section? Is that hand a hand, or is that the cursor? That's the cursor. All right. It's tough to tell. Never know. All right. We will close the public hearing section and move on to 5B, which is a consideration of action on the request by Tully's 2 Food and Spirits for approval of a zoning permit for new outdoor patio and associated fencing at 6401 Manoa Drive, 2/15/2022. All right, Doug.
Thank you. So as mentioned, this is a zoning permit to make the temporary outdoor patio more of a year-round or seasonal installation. The proposal here is a 25-foot by 44-foot installation in the back of the building, between the building and the trash recycling enclosure. A pre-hearing conference and public hearing was held at the last meeting, June 13th, where there was discussion. It was generally positive, some discussion about the materials, location, and things like that. The property itself is located within the community design district, and both the current and future land use show this as commercial. As mentioned, the patio is in the parking lot and covers about 5 of the parking stalls. There would be none adjacent to it, with no need for additional curb stops. The fence itself is in the rear of the property and maybe up to 6 feet tall. There's an existing fence around the perimeter, as well as the trash and recycling enclosure, and there is a temporary white picket fence that is included, as mentioned by the applicant, with concrete base to keep it in place. There was some discussion about that at the pre-hearing, but it seemed general consensus was that the design seemed okay. There were questions about the parking and capacity. The outdoor patio itself has room for 6 4-person tables. On the site, there are approximately 56 stalls, including the 5 taken up by the patio. and Tully's has approximately 149 seats, with the breakdown included in the staff report. Parking code requires that the Tully's have 50 parking stalls, 50, so even with the removal of the 5 that are mentioned here for the patio, there would still be 1 stall surplus, and so it meets the code requirements. And again, as mentioned at the pre-hearing, it is the less busy season in the summer and sort of when this is proposed to be in place. Per the liquor license, the patio will close by 9 p.m. each night, and staff recommends approval with the conditions as listed in the staff report. And these mimic the recently approved Sal's patio, also on Monona Drive. Thank you.
All right. Rob, why don't we start that end?
I don't really have anything to add.
All right. Perfect way to start.
Start with, I should say.
Yeah, just start with. Susan?
Nothing bad. I felt like we discussed everything last week. So.
Chris?
I'm good.
Yeah, with the parking confirmed, I'm good.
Chris?
I'm good. I would suggest we had one condition, and that's that the patio closes no later than 9 o'clock. I know it's a liquor condition, but technically the applicant could stay open till 11, 12 o'clock, not serving alcohol. And I know that's not your intention, but I think it should be clear in our zoning permit that the patio closes, period, not just serving liquor. Because there's a hotel right next in the neighborhood. You've always done it, and I appreciate what you've done. I know you haven't had a problem, but somebody else could go in there and try to go beyond it.
I have no problem with that.
All right. Would someone like to make a motion?
I'll move approval with conditions 1 through 4 as written by staff, and condition 5 that the patio area should close no later than 9 p.m. that night.
A second.
All right. Any questions? None? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, congratulations. Thank you. All right, moving on to new business 6A, which is a public hearing on the request by Nmotion Medical Transport, represented by Twala Darufi, for approval of a zoning permit, the new sublease in the AIM distribution space at 851 through 855 East Broadway, case 217-2022. Not sure if someone on Zoom is here for this public hearing. If you are, can you unmute? We see a box around Joshua Trucks, but we're not able to hear you. And Joshua, if you're speaking, we still can't hear you on this end. I'm not sure if you also joined by phone, and one of the two dial-in phones is you.
Not on the.
We got you now.
Can you hear me right now?
Yep, perfect.
There we go. Yeah, the headset just didn't connect. I'm actually on my phone, but doing through Zoom, actually.
All right.
Tap on the phone.
And Joshua, are you here to present on this item, or?
I'm here to support Twala.
Okay.
And she is here on the phone, I believe. The ending at 4626 would be her.
Okay, we see that phone. Not sure if she's able to unmute so she can help present.
I'm not sure how to do that on the phone.
Hi, I am here.
Perfect.
Oh, there's Twala.
All right. So we
You
just.
guys wasn't able to hear me at first. I apologize.
No worries, no worries. We can hear you now, and we're in the public hearing section. So if you're able to share with us kind of an overview of what this proposal is.
So pretty much it's just Nmotion Medical Transportation is wanted to rent out the space at the AIM distribution, hopefully to expand business. So that's really what it is, just to have space to rent out.
Doug, are you able to add a little bit more context?
Yes, I can just give a little more detail. So it's a non-emergency medical transportation service. planning to use a portion, about 5,000 square feet of the 13,000 square feet total that were previously approved by for AIM distribution. There would be a number of vehicles parked, and the application materials show those in the front of the building, closest to East Broadway. There would be about 20 patients transported per day, and an inclusion of both warehouse and office space would be needed. There would be no vehicles stored inside overnight, and I'm just pulling up here the details. The staff report lists the sort of typical shifts, with most employees on site and out serving the customers between 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. There would be potentially 18 employees at that point. Typically, these vans are minivan type vehicles, and then there would be 3 larger vehicles as well that would need to be stored on site. In speaking with the applicant, it is typical that the employee vehicles will take the space of those that are being used in a one-for-one basis, so there doesn't often need to be both employee and vehicle parking.
All right, is there anybody else here to join us regarding the public hearing or here to appear regarding this item that's been noticed?
I think it was just us two.
Joshua, did you have anything that you wanted to add to the public hearing section?
No, I think Twala took care of that nicely.
Okay. We can close the public hearing section, move on to 6B is a consideration of action on the request by Nmotion Medical Transportation for approval of a zoning permit for a new sublease in the AIM distribution space at 851 through 855 East Broadway, case 2/17/2022. Doug.
Thank you. So just as way of addition here, a couple more items to add. The property 851 to 855 East Broadway is part of the Community Design District, which calls for a compatible mix of residential, commercial, or industrial uses. The comprehensive plan in both the current and future land use maps also show this as commercial. The proposed use appears to align with that. The site itself has 50 shared parking stalls for the building's 3 tenants, and NMNT, the applicant here, expects to use approximately 30 in the front of the building. According to the parking code, there would need to be some relief granted to the applicant for that, because they would need 48 stalls per code, with the breakout included there. That is specifically for an industrial use with fleet vehicles, which in reviewing this seem to be the most appropriate. But again, as mentioned during the public hearing, there is that sort of one-for-one trade-off between the employees and the vehicles that they use during the day. Typical hours here would be 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., although sometimes they do work outside of those. There are no modifications proposed to the building. I will say that the tenant of this space, AM Distribution, has completed the conditions from their zoning permit that was approved in late April as well, which included some landscaping cleanup, screening of the dumpster and such. So that has all been taken care of. With that, staff recommends approval of the zoning permit with the conditions as listed in the staff report. Thanks.
And Susan, would you mind starting us off?
Yeah, I guess the only concern I had, it seems to make sense to me, is the parking, and I'm okay with the switching off the driver, putting their car there, taking the other car out. I just wondered that it looks like the stalls could be restriped to make it more clear. There are 12 in the back, so I assume, as you say, you'd be using mostly the front. I'm a little concerned about talking about if it grows the additional stalls, because previous business seems to only use maybe 4 stalls, and Patio Health, I'm not sure how many they're using, but I guess I'd just like to nail that down more. It sounds like it'd be 14 drivers and then maybe another several people who are staying there during the day. I mean, it sounds like it's enough for now. I guess I was more concerned about the growth. And then, as I said, maybe restriping them, which I know we didn't put as a condition before, but looks like it would be a good idea.
Chris?
I have a question, which is, I see that the anticipated visitors per day are only 1 to 2, and I understand that this business serves patients and sometimes families in large groups. So but I know they likely don't come to you. So who are, just out of curiosity, really, who are the visitors that come to you, and how do you know you'll only have 1 to 2 per day?
It's barely any visitors that will come to the building. That's why we put maybe 1 or 2, but it's something that barely ever even happens. Any location that they had before, they barely receive visitors. They pretty much service it's outsourced, so they don't really have visitors coming to the location.
Okay. I think that's all I have. Brandon?
I don't know if there's really I don't know how to put this as a question, but that whole area where like the Shell station is and the Menards and that industrial building, the cross traffic on that road, with medical appointments, that's going to be a lot more vehicles coming and going. But right across the street you have the UW Yahara Clinic. So I guess with the Stephen Brew, who's currently there or was previously there, I don't know if they're still there. If they were exiting onto Edna Taylor, the smaller road in terms of leaving vehicles, because you're going to have a lot more frequency of probably vehicles departing. I don't know if we are able to do anything as far as stipulating how we want traffic to flow leaving that property. It seems easy enough if they're coming westbound on Broadway, it would be fine to be turning into it, but something about the left turns with that many vehicles coming and going, it's just not a very, that area, just in terms of issues and concerns around accidents, I don't like anything about that stretch of road really on either the north or south side. I mean, we've tried to curb it a lot. The median is pretty continuous there. You're not able to make a lot of turns, but something about how...
They make a comment on that, sir.
Yeah.
Basically, most of our vehicles leave in the morning, or, at a certain point, they go do all the trips out. No patient ever comes to our office.
Yeah.
And then they come back at the end of the day. Now, as far as that traffic right there, most of our trips are out of town, long distance, all over the place, which means we need to get to the belt line to get anywhere.
Yeah.
In most cases, which means right there, a right turn, right over to Monona Drive, and we're right to the belt line.
Yeah.
So we could leave there and not do cross traffic.
Okay. Yeah, that's my chief concern, is just the cross traffic there. It sounds like it's
And
not
I
an
get
issue.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. No, I have no other questions. Chris?
We've done a lot in the last 20 years to keep car lots and storage yards, et cetera, off of Broadway and put a lot of money into it to upgrade it. And this kind of looks a little bit like a storage yard to me. Number one, they're monopolizing all the parking there. They're only taking 5,000 square foot of the building, yet they're talking about, the stalls now, and if they add any vehicles, they basically have all the parking in a building that big. We've had issues like that before. Then somebody else comes in for a zoning permit and there's no parking left. The math doesn't make sense to me. To have 18 vehicles and 14 drivers but only move 20 patients a day, so basically you move 1.5 patient a day, or is this just a storage yard for vehicles? I'm concerned about that.
Can I make a comment on that as well?
Go ahead. Yeah.
I was going to say, the patients we move, like I said, are mostly out of town. So most of our trips take many hours. So it might only be 20 to 40 a day, but we're going to Illinois, and we're going to go to Wisconsin, we're going to Iowa. So we're driving all over the place. So sometimes it is a long time just to move 1 or 2 patients. So the vehicles are mostly going to be out and about as much as possible. I don't know if that answers any question, but I just wanted to comment on that.
It helps clear up some of the reason for the math. It still is monopolizing the lot. I don't know what we do about that. I can't see any ability to expand and have another 15 vehicles here. And we all know when a driver comes in the morning, you can say what you want. They'll pull whatever stall's open and then go get their truck and pull it out. That'd be pretty rare for a driver to come in and do all that. I work with a lot of truckers and a lot of drivers. That's not the way it flows. So I worry about other customers there. Certainly the one they're subletting from, AIM, is fine with it, but how about the other people in that building?
I apologize for interrupting. From my understanding, there is street parking, and there's also parking in the back of the building, so parking should not be an issue.
Well, we don't zone a business based on street parking. There has to be enough parking on the site for the business. And the stalls in the back, there's just not a lot of stalls here. That's my biggest problem. And then obviously they'd have to all be operable vehicles, but I assume that's your intent?
I believe that was I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
I'm assuming these are all operable vehicles that you'd have parked here, not vehicles that need repair or not being used?
Yeah, they're operable, yes.
I'm throwing it out for a question for the rest of the commission, how they feel about this. That's a lot of vehicles for a small piece of that big building.
Well, with what's been mentioned, I have a question. If your customers are as far away as they are, could you provide some context as to the location, this particular siting, how this might benefit you or be to your advantage, this particular location?
Well, you want me to take that, or you got it?
You could take it, go ahead.
Okay. Basically, since a lot of the traffic is either going south towards Illinois or north, this area right by 51 and the interstate is a prime point, a takeoff point for our northern customers, our southern customers, and then of course we just go down the belt line and go through Verona to get to customers on that direction, or up past Middleton for the customers in that direction. So it's all, and that's how we do it all now, because our current shop is just south of the 51 and Beltline intersection in McFarland. So we're already doing that right now. And as far as the customers go, our main customer in town is the VA hospital. So we're at the VA hospital quite a bit, and then we take their patients from all over the state and sometimes out of state, and a bunch, and in Illinois we do a lot of their patients, dialysis, all that kind of thing. So we're taking them around. So that location is prime because of the access to the highway system.
How far east of 51 does our jurisdiction go in terms of Monona? We probably are. I'm just thinking about the spots that you get near to agriculture. And
no, that's all Madison.
Some of those.
Yeah, that's all Madison. In fact, a lot of west of 51 is Madison.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Well, do we have any idea how many spaces Afria Healthcare uses or needs? I tried to look at the AIM proposal, look back at that, and I didn't see that. I'm just trying to figure out how many are already being used by the businesses that are there.
I don't have the formal approvals, but from the site visits and sort of inspections for AIM, it was very few.
It seems like very few, that's
yes.
what I thought. Well, so it's just 4 for AIM, and it sounds like 4 that would be there all day for here. So you're maybe talking 12 to 13, 14 that would be there all day. So if some of the drivers could park their cars in the back and then pull their cars out. I'm not as concerned about the vans being there just because those canopy trees are really nice in the front on Broadway. I mean, it feels like they'll be sort of covered. But I am concerned about the thought of additional vehicles. I guess I just don't see room for that. I guess I'm thinking this number might work, but an additional 10 to 15 stalls is concerning.
Well,
I'm sorry, I don't know, where's the 10 to 15 additional stalls coming from?
Oh, it was just in the application that as we require parking stalls for the current number of vehicles we have, as well as anticipated growth of the business which may require an additional 10 to 15 stalls. Which seems like more stalls than are there.
So from my understanding, the stalls are they're already out there, so there's no, I don't recall there being any additional stalls to be installed.
Okay, so given that your total, and I probably didn't do the math right, if you have 18 vehicles now, and then you add a few, and then you really would be needing to swap out the drivers and the vans that they're taking. But there may well be enough, I guess, given that it seems tight.
Aren't there a bunch of camper vans that are
Right
right
there,
there, right across the street
Yeah.
at that same spot, right? Is that
Right across right behind the
right
chief
behind
property.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that all? Is that just? I don't know if you know if that's just stored vehicles or.
Stored vehicles and waiting for development, yeah.
Yeah.
Rob?
Well, I don't have a big concern with the vehicles being there because I feel like it's going to operate much like a business, and that employees are going to come there and it's going to be a parking lot full of employee vehicles. And if it's their service line fleet vehicles, I don't know. It's kind of an industrial drive there, and I don't have an issue with that necessarily. And if it's 30 stalls that are needed, I think that is palatable as well. However, if it becomes more than that, that becomes an issue with the shared parking agreement just for future tenants. And I don't know how you would plan to address that, because then you would not be able to take up 40 of the 50 stalls if a business with 8 employees move in. Since it's a shared parking agreement.
I'm sorry, I'm on my phone and the service is you guys kind of going in and out. You said what would be the plan if we need more parking?
Correct. There's a shared parking agreement for the whole site and all the businesses within. And if you were to expand your business, you're already taking up the lion's share of the parking. It would not allow for another business to come in there and have appropriate parking.
Oh, okay. So I think if they do get to the point where they need to expand business, then they'll probably have to get another location.
And, Doug, can you remind me, I won't be able to find it quickly, the owner of the building and approval regarding that with the idea of potentially limiting other leases?
So I have seen a copy of the sublease as drafted and executed, and I forget his name's on the application. Mark Bollering is the property owner for this, and so I would have to double check the terms of the lease and maybe the applicant you mentioned here in terms of allocated stalls, if that was actually included, I think 30, if that's included in the lease terms themselves.
So the question for the applicant was, is the parking, the 30 parking stalls part of the sublease agreement with the landlord?
So it is, I believe it's 25 is a part agreement with the sub-landlord. And the 25 is part of the agreement with the sub-landlord. He was, AIM Distribution was okay for us to take over the parking that they were going to use, that's in the front of the building.
Okay. So it was 25 for the business, but then in addition was AIM allowing the additional use of the stalls that they had dedicated for their business?
So it's 25 total. AIM's lease, from my understanding, they have permission to use 25 of the stalls. So the 25 of the stalls that AIM has permission to use from the landlord, AIM is okay to let Nmotion use those stalls. And then any additional space, if Nmotion needs any additional space, then they'll take it up with the landlord if that is the case. But as of right now, Nmotion's okay with the 25 stalls.
Thank you.
Did that answer your question?
I believe it did for me. Are there other questions?
Okay.
Yeah, can I get a clarification on that? That there's 50 stalls total, and per the terms of the sublease agreement, 25 would be allowed, allocated for Nmotion, and 25 would be, no? Okay, I need clarification.
25 total.
25 total. Between AIM and Nmotion.
That's what it said.
Okay.
You still look a bit puzzled, so let's
leaves
spend
another
the time to make sure we got
25
this.
stalls, because there are 38 in the front, and I think there are 12 in the back. So there are 50
Where?
in the back of the building.
Yeah, I know there's 12 there and
And
then
then there are 38 in the
38.
front.
38.
Yeah, yeah. So 25 left over is way more than those other two businesses. They're using like,
Yeah, but they're going to use more than 25.
pardon me?
They'll use more than 25.
Oh, right, yeah,
I mean-
well, I thought it said
Yeah.
here they wanted 30, so.
18 vehicles plus the employees that work there,
Right.
plus AIM.
So AIM is okay with Nmotion using the 25 stalls, which is what was assigned to AIM in their lease. So the stalls that AIM had, in their lease, AIM is okay with Nmotion using those 25 stalls at this time. So the employees that comes in to get the medical vans, they park their car where the medical vans are and they take the medical vans. So I don't really think parking would be an issue if it's rotating in that kind of order.
I think one of the questions is, what, for the individuals that work at AIM, where are they parking?
So for the individuals who are working at Ames, from my understanding, there are parking spots in the back of the building. So AIM is okay with using the parking stalls that are in the back of the building, and Nmotion would be using 25 of the parking stalls that are in the front of the building.
Okay, and what I think you're hearing from us is if there's a total of 50 stalls, 38 in the front, 12 in the back, and AIM was dedicated 25 in their lease agreement, it's not going to tell them 25 in which location. They have 25 stalls of the total 50. So if they're still parking in those stalls in the back, they can't hand over 25 stalls because they're still using some. I think is some of the confusion that we have on our end.
Okay, so, all right, I guess that makes sense. So from my understanding, AIM is okay with Nmotion using the 25 stalls that are in the front of the building. However, there's not a lot of tenants in the building right now. The section where Nmotion would be taking over from, pretty much Nmotion would be taking over the whole front end of the building. So there really wouldn't be any tenants really parking right there other than, there wouldn't really be anyone else parking in the front of the building because AIM and Nmotion are the only ones in there at this time that really use the parking. And AIM is okay with parking in the back.
Well, yeah, I mean, if the lease specifies that seems sort of odd, because there are way more parking spots there. So I don't know, I guess I feel like we would have to have them come back if they anticipate any growth minimally. Again, this sounds to me like this could work, but certainly not growth with more vehicles. That's what I'm thinking.
I'll go back to Chris. Any other questions?
No, I've heard it.
Yeah, and I know we've talked about this with other situations that have shared parking agreements, that some of that onus is on the building owner in their lease agreements and sublease agreements, like what they potentially limit for other businesses that come in. We've had that
a few different locations where there's tight parking, and if the allowance of one tenant, which is a heavier parking, kind of you're limiting what potential other businesses might come in. All right, this was.
It's for,
Yeah, we already moved on first. Is there a motion?
well,
Can
I'll,
I just maybe ease the matter a little more?
please do.
So there's Eames and Nmotion, and then there's the rest of the building, which is
AIPRA, A-I-P-R-A, I don't know how to
They're a
pronounce it.
tenant. Okay, and we don't know what the terms of their lease agreement are. Right? So it could easily be 25 stalls,
Correct.
which makes this problematic.
Yes.
I agree with Susan that this could work here potentially. I think it could. But there's a lot of confusion around the parking, and you certainly don't have, to me, seemingly much room for expansion. And barely fit in what you have, actually. Thanks for
Yeah.
indulging me.
But I think there's, I guess what we don't know is this, the healthcare opria, or however it's pronounced, whether there's something in their lease that gives them a certain amount of parking, because clearly they don't use much. I mean, whenever I've gone by there too, there's only been 2 or 3 cars in the lot. So they're clearly not using 25 stalls. So that's just the whole, that's where we just don't have that information, I think. What's in the
Yeah,
lease.
I don't know if I'd be ready to make a motion on this, but that's me.
Yeah, I would want to see just the math laid out much more explicitly about the stalls, and, you know, to your point about the other leasing agreement, I think having a more complete picture and explicit picture about the stalls, I would want to know that.
Well, how about this? How about I throw out a motion, see if anybody agrees with it at all?
Go for it.
All right. I'll move approval with the recommendation as written by staff, with conditions 1, 2, and 3 as written by staff. Condition 4, that all vehicles parked outdoors must be operable. Condition 5, no expansion of this use without plan commission approval. Condition 6, that the parking lot shall be restriped, stalls. Condition 7, that all vehicles parked shall be parked in the approved stall or inside the building. And condition 8, if parking becomes an issue on this site, the applicant will be required to return to plan commission where additional restrictions may be applied.
How do we know what's an issue?
Need a second?
I would second that.
Okay, I'm sorry, it's just Robert's rules, we can't talk about it till there's actually somebody else that would go with it. That allows a lot of discretion for planning commission, but in my opinion, if all of a sudden we see all their vehicles or all their drivers parking out on the side street, that would be an issue. Because what we're looking at is them parking their vehicles on site.
Okay.
If it became a problem for the rest of that area, by parking outside, you know, if it becomes a problem between the tenants, that's for the landlord. You know, we don't get in the middle of that. But we do look at the site, because this is reminiscent of when, small history trip, I'm sorry. Where Century used to be up on Monona Drive? You know where Princeton Express is now? That was a Century store. And so the Metcalf said, you know, we have all this parking, we don't need it. And then once Century went out, it became Blockbuster. Well, now, no use, huge space, no use. And at that point, the Metcalf came in and said, hey, Instant Prince would like their own building. So we want to get a zoning permit to go right in the middle of this parking lot. Worked great, as long as Blockbuster was there. Then Blockbuster left, and Princeton Express came, and ever since then, as you all know, we've been having problems with parking in that center. So it's just, we have to look at the mixes. We're not the landlord. The landlord can say, you get this many stalls, you get this many. And the landlord needs to look at this use. If they're going to monopolize parking, that's an issue for the landlord. But it comes back in our lap eventually when somebody else wants to go and say APRA, IPRA, whatever that is, decides to leave, and the landlord says, I've got this great business, they need 20 stalls. there might not be 20 stalls on this site, but we have to look at that. Right now, I go by it all the time. There's rarely many cars there. So I agree with Susan that it looks like it would fit right now. But that's why the additional conditions are in there, because we still have to watch out for the entire building. And our problem is when it overflows, and now Edna Taylor Parkway is parked up and down both sides. That becomes the issue for the city. Occasional parking? No, not so
So,
much.
but who triggers the issue? Does someone on the commission drive by, see that there's an issue? And okay.
Or a complaint.
Or staff might see it, or there might be a complaint, at which time it would be brought back to Plan Commission.
Okay. Done.
Just a clarification question to the motion. The restriping, would that be front?
Front and back.
Front and back.
You can
Yeah.
barely make out where the stalls are.
Yeah,
It's cheap.
I had to get out of
It's
my
neat
car
to
and
be
look
straight.
at it hard in the back.
You can see it because of the different color of the asphalt, really.
Right, yeah.
It's aged different colors.
Yeah,
It's
and that's
a
not
minor
bad.
thing, but how are we going to tell who's in what stalls and count? I mean, it should be restriped just for anybody who uses that place. It
Thanks.
makes the parking much more efficient, and they're going to need efficient parking after this.
Are there any questions by the applicant based on the motion?
Hello? I didn't have any.
No, I don't have any questions.
All right.
So if I could just speak to the applicant. As you can tell, there's a lot of heartburn here about your use and how many stalls you'll have and if the center can support it. So that's why there's some restrictive conditions. If everything goes the way you say, we'll never get a call, we'll never get a complaint, and there won't be a problem. But if it does end up restricting the use of all the other people in that building, then it likely will come back here. And that's where the last condition, we could apply additional restrictions, which might be the number of vehicles. But the only way to do it with the heartburn tonight, I think, is to qualify it like that.
Understood.
All right.
Understandable.
All right. Thank you. So there's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and we are moving on to 6C, which is a public hearing on the request by Monona Grove School District, represented by Space Co. Inc. for consideration of a zoning permit for a parking lot and playground improvements at 5301 Manoa Drive, case 2/18/2022.
I'll excuse myself for this one.
And let's see, do we have someone on Zoom prepared to present for us?
I'm here, Ted Ward from Space Co. Engineering.
Awesome. And Ted, you have the floor.
All right, thank you for having me again. My name is Ted Ward from Space Co. Engineering. We're in Rosemont, Illinois. We've been working with the district for probably the past 6 or 7 years on their capital maintenance program throughout the school district. This year, the proposed project, which is probably best illustrated on page 4 of the plan set that was included in your set today, is a modification of the existing district office parking lot. It's a net zero, essentially, in all facets here. Essentially, the grounds right now have an auxiliary parking lot that's also used as a playground space on the south side of the property. That's got about 30 parking stalls there. The proposed plan here is to eliminate that auxiliary lot and just build a dedicated playground lot there with basketball hoops, foursquare, that kind of stuff, and then improve the parking area with an additional 30 stalls there and relocate the existing bus lane closer to the playground area and make traffic flow better on the property itself. It's a pretty straightforward project, small working area here, no increase to parking stalls or volume. So I'm here to answer any questions you may have on it.
All right. Is there anybody else on Zoom that is here for the public appearance section of the public hearing?
Hello. I'm not sure if you can hear me or not.
Yep, we hear you.
Yeah. Hi. I'm just a homeowner across the street, and so I'm here mostly to hear about this, but I don't really have anything to say. It sounds sounds pretty nice. So.
Well, thank you for joining.
Yeah. I just got the letter that said it was going to be about that, and but it sounds like there's not like any expected loss of like road access or for residents for any period of time.
Correct. I'm not sure if you've been able to see the plans, if you went to the website to look for the plans.
No, I have not. I'm sorry.
Okay. If you do have access to that, is one location that you could go to be able to view the sheet 4 that Ted was referencing, which shows kind of the conditions overlap, the existing conditions overlapping with kind of the planned kind of changes in development. So that's another location you would be able to get a visual representation of what's being presented here today.
Yes, I see that now.
Perfect.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Tim, are you able to, normally if you were in person, we would have you fill out a form. So for our minutes, we're able to record your name and your address. Could you share that with us?
Yeah. Can I just put it in the chat box?
Yeah, that works just
type it out there?
Yep. And Ted, that wasn't for you. That was for Tim as a...
Yep, I'm sorry.
Yep, no worries. All right, and seeing no other individuals here for the public hearing section, we can close that and open up new business D, which is the pre-hearing conference. Request by Manoa Grove School District, represented by Spaceco Inc. for consideration of zoning permit for parking lot and playground improvements at 5301 Manoa Drive, case 218-2022.
Thank you. So, as mentioned, zoning permit request here for a new playground and realignment of the existing parking lot. The parcel at 5301 Monona Drive is located within the Community Design District, the CDD, and a zoning permit is required because of the proposed construction and engineering review associated with this. Just of note here, the undeveloped area to the west of the parking is zoned single family, although all the work that is part of this application is within the CDD. The comprehensive plan in both the current and future land use shows this as a government institutional site. The site design and circulation, the plan here is to use the existing curb cut along Nichols to give an improved bus drop-off with sidewalk leading to the school. New basketball courts proposed in place at the southern parking lot, and also the connection between the northern and southern parking will be removed as part of the project. New tree islands will be added, aiding stormwater and visually enhancing the site. There is a net reduction in the number of parking stalls that are proposed. The land use here is for both MG21, currently serving 75 students in grades 6 through 12, as well as the school district offices as well. So the existing conditions show 110 stalls total, 3 of which being ADA compliant. And the proposed plans have an 8-stall reduction, keeping the same number of ADA compliant stalls. In speaking with the applicant, it was shared that this proposal allows for better parking options for school district meetings as well as future MG21 growth. The Commission may choose to discuss the appropriate classification for this, given both the office type use as well as the school use, which has different parking requirements. There are no improvements to the building proposed at this time. I did just include a couple comments here. Stormwater is one of the big pieces of this project, and I've already shared preliminary plans with the city's consulting engineer just to get an understanding of how this is impacted by the new stormwater ordinance. And certainly the plan here is to bring this back for formal consideration at the next meeting. The full review memo will be ready by then, but I'll have the applicant work closely with Darren on that moving forward here. The site lighting should be discussed. The plans show 3 new light poles, with one of those possibly being relocated. Details and specs were not included. Maybe the commission could discuss if a photometric plan is needed. The lights do not look to be near the property boundaries, but it may be something that is requested for the formal submittal. And landscaping as well. This shows substantial and extensive tree islands that are proposed, although a landscape plan is not provided. And so in terms of canopy trees and ground plantings as well, that would be expected that there would be a landscape plan that would accompany this. The plans do deviate slightly from the attachment 2 of the zoning code as it relates to tree islands, but given the size, the commission may choose that that's an appropriate trade-off there. The plans were shared with department heads for review and comment, and none were received at this time. Thank you.
Chris, comment?
Well, I drive past this probably 20 times a day, so I'm excited to see this improvement. I will confess that my 4-year-old daughter and I have sometimes played on the playground at Winnequa School, and I'm curious, I don't even know if that's allowed, but we've done it. Are members of the public allowed to use this playground, or do we need to worry about that, or make a condition? A sign? No sign?
You can ask
It's
Sue.
okay? I have no other questions. That's fantastic. Thank you.
And Brandon?
No, you answered the question that there'd be a forthcoming landscaping plan. And I'm also excited to see the improvement, the consolidation of the parking lot, the removal of the auxiliary lot. I think it's a net gain.
Chris?
Okay, as far as, Doug, you mentioned the use is appropriate, if you're asking that question. I think there's a row of really nice, I think they're honey locusts along Nichols, but other than that, the site's virtually no landscaping or trees. There's a big old cottonwood and one nice oak tree, so I would expect substantial landscaping for this based on the number of parking stalls. Question for the applicant, have you reviewed, are you aware of what's going to be required for water quality, and where are you going to put that?
So we have not had the opportunity to review the plans with the city's engineer yet. This is a net neutral site as far as imperviousness. Stormwater management requirements shouldn't apply to this site. I don't know that there's anything else that I can speak to on that yet, since we haven't had the opportunity to sit with the city's engineer on this yet.
Okay, yes, stormwater requirements do apply to the site. Fortunately for you, since you've not added impervious, you don't have to meet the 80% TSS removal, but you do need to meet 40%. You do need to meet oil and grease. And I'm not sure if that will be enough, because Dane County adopted their new ordinance, and this will be a question for Darren, but when they adopted it, they virtually took Madison's ordinance, and Madison's ordinance is if you have over 85% of the existing, then you have to, some of your treatment has to be through environmentally green, what they consider green method, which it would be green to have a biobasin. I'm just curious if you're aware of that, and you've got some work to do, especially if they're trying to be here for a meeting in 2 weeks. I don't know how they get all that put together and put through in time for a review, but stormwater would be a requirement of this site. Another question, the bus lane. The existing bus lane, it's a little wider drive there, so that when the buses are lined up there for kids, people can still circulate through there. It looks to me like your new alignment, the buses will pretty much block anybody that's parked in those stalls. So are those going to be designated for people that don't need to come and go during bus pickup, or how are you going to handle that?
So one of the differences between the existing site plan and the new site plan is that is a two-way drive aisle where the buses can stack up right now. We've changed the configuration to be a one-way drive aisle. If I remember right, what do we have? An 18.5-foot aisle there, which is where 45-degree parking or 60-degree parking, sorry, should be plenty for cars to be able to back out of a stall with the bus still piled up on with buses piled up on the curb in a one-way configuration like that.
I might disagree with that, I think, but you know, if you used your parking where, I don't know, do teachers, do they stay there until the buses are all gone? I am allowed, we have one of the school board members here. Who stays in that building until buses are gone? Or is there some way to dedicate those stalls for somebody that's going to not have to leave? Because you have quite a few buses back up there if it goes back to having more students.
Right, they're right down there. I mean, district office staff, teaching staff, some of the students drive.
Okay.
Taiwan.
All right.
So that one end, I mean, you could designate.
It's just a suggestion for the board, because I don't think with buses piled in there, I don't think somebody's going to back out of that drive aisle and be able to make it. They're going to take up easily, they won't be tight to the curb, they'll be close, they'll easily take up 8 feet, that'd be 10 feet, and 10 feet's not enough to back out of 60-degree parking. Small car, maybe.
Yeah, I think,
Just something to think about, Sue.
some of what I've observed is that even though cars are supposed to come in and go around, the cars sometimes come in and take that first left and
Oh, sure.
park right there.
Yeah.
Then they're not in
Okay.
conflict with the buses.
Okay. Another comment is, I know if I don't mention it, Rob will, but we break up our stalls every 12. Now, I do tend to agree with staff. We did allow this at WPS when they put in really, really big islands, because the fact of the matter is, in a really big island like that, they can put some trees and landscaping in there that will prosper, and it won't have snow and salt piled up against it. When we have these little 8-foot and 9-foot tree islands, by the time they pile snow all the way around, there's not much left. And I'll be anxious to see what Rob has to say, but I love the new islands. It would be nice somewhere in there to be able to get some trees in the middle of this blacktop asphalt, I should say, but I could certainly be talked into less islands but bigger. They're not extensive, but they're big. I know you mentioned there's not a lot of them, but they're big, and I like that. Lighting plan, I would say for sure we need. This is pretty good size, and it is at a school and an office building, so we would expect that anywhere else. And I think those are the broad strokes. I'm curious if anybody feels we'll have confusion on that site with being partial diagonal parking and partial 90-degree parking. But if it's well signed and we also have some arrows striped, I think that could work. Usually we don't mix and match like that. The biggest item, though, certainly is the erosion control, not erosion control, the water quality. And, well, we'll see. They'll need to put a plan together, get it to Darren, and I don't think all that will happen before Packet.
Rob?
Okay, I'll probably bounce around a little bit here, but I think the use is good. I like the big islands. I think that there's a really beautiful oak in that kind of southwest island. I think that you should make sure that that's protected very well. I don't know if there's any plans for using that island for any sort of stormwater, but I would be really careful around that tree because it's a really beautiful oak. As far as landscaping goes, I would agree with Chris. I think we need to do a lot of landscaping, and I don't have a problem with the expansive parking because of the size of the islands, but getting really nice landscaping there I think will be important. As far as species and what kinds, stick to the natives. Getting a pavement striping plan with directional arrows I think would be helpful as well. Okay, now I have a couple of questions about the design. The whole, what is it called? The 2-foot pavement patch at existing asphalt that runs through the middle of a parking aisle. I don't know why you would do that in that instance. I don't think that would ever get built that way. You're going to want to pave up to where you make the saw cut and to match into that existing. I don't know the reasoning behind that. If you want to comment that on a little bit, that's fine. I'm just going to go through my list here. Also, you have what you call a reverse pitch curb. Is that a concrete curb? Is that just what is that?
It's a curb that pitches away from the face of the curb, pitches into the asphalt.
We would We call
So
it
yes,
a reject curb.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. It was a
Reject curb and
reject
gutter,
curb.
but it's curb and gutter.
It just
correct?
doesn't look like there's a curb and gutter, but maybe it's just because it's the half-size plans. So we would have, on the far east of the site where that curb meets, we meet a thickened edge walk is what we meet. I don't think there's curb on that circular area there. Would it make sense to just do a thickened edge walk along that whole sidewalk there and not do a reject curb? And then match that thickened edge walk into the existing thickened edge walk?
So this would be a carriage walk situation. I wouldn't do it as a thickened edge. I would pour the curb separately from the sidewalk. But yes, they would meet flush, the top curb and the finished sidewalk.
Okay. The connecting path, concrete path going to the basketball courts, it looks like you married into the existing asphalt that's going to be removed instead of meeting into the edge of the court. I think it would be nice to see like an S-curve and then match that corner in so you don't have a lip of concrete overhanging the asphalt.
I agree with you on that.
Thanks for your patience here. Oh, where do you have depressed curb and gutter?
There is no depressed curb and gutter proposed.
Okay. It was in your key, so I was just making sure I didn't miss that. And then I think my final comment is regarding the drive aisles. Is there a reason that one is 18 and a half and one is 18?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head. The only thing I could suspect from our engineers was that it was done in an effort to again get this site to a net zero impervious.
Okay.
But I can follow up on that.
I think that's all for now. Thanks.
And getting back to your first question about the 2-foot pavement patch, I do agree with you on that one as well. Where the parking lot is being expanded, that 2-foot pavement patch is typically only necessary when you're putting asphalt up against an existing concrete surface.
Correct, yeah.
All right. I have no additional questions, and if anything, that 18'5" versus the 18, or I can't even read it. I think it's 18 and a half. If there was anything to increase that size, where the buses are going to be, half foot isn't going to make the difference, but that would be, if it was going to be bigger, that would be where it would be bigger. After hearing all of these, does anybody have any other questions, Chris?
Mine's more a comment for staff. Half-scale plans are real nice to have in here, but if we could in the future, if we're going to have half-scale plans, it would be nice if we could read them. I mean, it's really tiny, so they could be drafted then with a little larger font size or something, because I think even some of your younger eyes are having problems reading this.
Thanks. You might have really good eyes. We don't. Any other questions that individuals have? Any questions from the applicant? Todd, do you have any questions for us?
I don't believe so. I think we've got a couple of marching orders here, and I just need you, Doug, touch base with you here probably sooner than later, and try to get us in touch with your engineer so we can try to work through these minor issues. As I think I told you, Doug, this is currently out to bid. Bids are due next week. It's a very small construction window that the district has to work with here. So if we can't get this put together, this likely would be a project that gets tabled till next year.
Absolutely, I'll connect with you tomorrow morning. I heard back from the engineer tonight that he can make it work, and he gave me a timeline to work with, so I'll coordinate. I wanted to make sure it was good on his end first, and I got that confirmation, so we can coordinate.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Rob, good.
Yeah, one thing I was looking at with the basketball courts there, in the lighting plan, I don't know the answer to this question, but depending on what type of lighting, and I mean like 1 through 5, like is there any interest in having any lighting at the basketball courts, or do we want to keep it like type 4 lighting that just goes to the sides and forward? I think that's type 4. I don't know what the desire is for the school district, but you might get some basketball players there depending on what the lighting, the photometrics work out.
My understanding from the district was that the playground area is for day use only, school use only, and that's why they didn't ask us to provide any lighting for it.
Chris?
I would say if that's the intent, that'll sail through the easiest, because if we light it at night, then we'll certainly have to talk to the neighbors about that. Most neighbors don't want that right in their backyard. So I think just a mention of that on the lighting plan would be great, that area won't be lit.
Perfect. All right. I think we are good. That one was not for action, just a pre-hearing conference. So, Todd, as long as you got everything you need, and it sounds like you'll be able to work with Doug tomorrow to talk through the stormwater pieces.
All right, that's it for me. I appreciate your time.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Susan can come back and join us, and we will move on to item 7, which is reports staff and commission members for a staff report regarding the status of development proposals and economic development update.
Thank you. Just to let the commission know, the CDA will be meeting tomorrow night to discuss 2 projects. The Monona Garden project, there will be a term sheet that is presented at that meeting. So really, assuming the term sheet is acceptable to both parties, I'll be looking to bring that back to the next Plan Commission meeting for formal consideration. They would subsequently return to CDA to finalize agreements and things like that, but I feel that is sort of running concurrent paths and being respectful of timeline. I think that seems to work best. I do already have the materials, and that they're already with the engineer for review. So Monona Garden is further along. The Bloom project, the Monona Drive BMO Bank site, is also coming back tomorrow to CDA. That's a little earlier in the process. There's still some more items to discuss there, but there are materials in the packet if you would like to go and take a look at that, and that'll be 6:30 tomorrow night at City Hall. That meeting will be held. I can jump into the upcoming items as well. Monona Garden, as mentioned, would be on for the formal consideration, as would Nichols School. And as I mentioned, I have been working to coordinate schedules there, given the holiday and being respectful of the school district timeline. A couple other items: the 915 Femrite, the car sales business. I did receive materials for the follow-up there on the conditions. A couple items: landscaping, lighting. So that'll be coming back as well for additional review and consideration. And finally, some tenant improvements over at 2101 West Broadway. I think I had mentioned this at a previous meeting, and they chose to push, but this is the remaining balance, effectively, of the floor and decor space of the former Shopco building. They're looking to white box it and to do sort of facade improvements in preparation for a future tenant, and that would also include additional parking lot work as well for the balance of parking that was not part of floor and decor. And finally, based upon discussion at the last meeting, I did have a couple discussions about the room. I know there was good feedback from the commission about the room at City Hall. I think there are still some technological benefits to being in this room, but would certainly welcome kind of continued discussion there. But I did have a chance to speak to the media team about that, and we'll certainly check in with Chair Moore as well when she returns about that. Thanks.
questions? Chris?
Just a clarification, so the Monona Garden, if it gets a favorable review from CDA, they'll have details to work out, but CDA will say, yeah, we think we can make this work, then it's coming here.
Yes, so there's a term sheet that's being presented, which would be number of units, TIF ask, timeline, and basically that would then be put into a more formal agreement at a future.
Understood, but they'll have a rough agreement that, yeah, we're on the
Yes.
same thing before it comes here. Okay,
Definitely.
great. Thank you. And then just as item, floor and decor, their tenant, we shouldn't have a problem with parking stalls there.
There's a lot.
Yes. And they're all filled in now.
It's being resurfaced.
It's looking,
Yes.
it's improving.
Yes.
Great. Any other questions that people have? All right. I would say the update for diversity, equity, and inclusion, there was a final report that was provided to council regarding the ad hoc committee. And upcoming, there'll be an implementation ad hoc group for our report that was provided. So I encourage you to go check out the report. It's pretty thorough. There are some items within that report that I think directly connect to this body. And so at some point, that will likely be an item that we will be addressing, is my guess. So more to come in the future, but if you haven't had a chance, I would encourage you to take a look at it and be prepared for some future discussions. I don't believe we have any, well, there's no updates I have regarding sustainability.
Nothing from me.
All right, upcoming meetings, we should be all set.
Yes.
Any requests for info, Chris?
This doesn't have a lot to do with us, but I just noticed tonight when I came in that there was a couple people walking right down the middle of the parking lot to come up here. And I looked at it, I thought, well, we have a sidewalk all the way through here. Why the heck would they walk down there? And then I looked, our sidewalk ends, it doesn't go all the way out to the road, and it's just, it'd be an issue for city or library staff or public works, but I wonder why we never continue the sidewalk down there so people could actually get on a sidewalk and walk to the library.
If I recall that discussion, it had to do with there is no sidewalk on this side of
Correct. But,
Healy.
but people still walk here, and we have a sidewalk within 25 feet of the road.
Yeah, and when we talked about putting that one in, it was for patrons as they're getting out of their vehicles to be able to walk up.
I understand. But what in reality is people are walking up the middle of the driveway. Why, we have a nice sidewalk, it's elevated. I looked at it, I walked down there to check it out. You caught me, Doug.
I did.
And, there's a route you could take, just, you'd have to run a nice S-curve like Rob likes. But it could be done, and when people are walking on their sidewalk, they choose where to cross. If there's a sidewalk there, for me, that's where I'd cross. We give them ability to come up on a nice sidewalk instead of walking down the driveway. It's a minor thing.
What's the slope there?
It's as steep as the rest of it. It wouldn't be.
Well, it's 10% slope for the drive, I know, the drive aisles.
Yeah.
So you couldn't
There's a, you look at it when you
switch
leave.
back, I guess.
No, you don't need to switch back.
Well, there's need a railing then if you...
They're walking on the driveway at the same slope.
I'm just saying.
And the reason the apron's a little steeper slope is because it goes down to the gutter, whereas the sidewalk could come out on the head of the curb and take 6 inches of that out.
That's true.
And they're walking in the same area as it is now. It's just an observation. You can pass it along, and people agree. We can do something if they don't.
Just put an apron on the end then, and then truncated domes.
If it's not an ADA route, you wouldn't do that because it's not ADA. Our ADA is up above. There's no way to get an ADA route there. The only one is up on the upper end because it's too steep all the way along. You have to have 5%, or you have to have railings.
Right.
I sense a field trip on the way out tonight.
Yep.
All right. Is there a motion for adjournment?
I'll move to adjourn.
Awesome. A second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. We are adjourned.
Before the meeting started, I did like time distance.
How far off are we?
I had it at an hour and 20 minutes.
What's that?
I had it at an hour and 20 minutes.
Oh,